You're listening to A Tiny Homestead, the podcast comprised entirely of conversations with homesteaders, cottage food producers, and crafters, and topics adjacent. I'm your host, Mary Lewis. A Tiny Homestead podcast is sponsored by Homegrown Collective, a free-to-use farm-to-table platform, emphasizing local connections with ability to sell online, buy, sell, trade in local garden groups, and help us grow a new food system. You can find them at homegrowncollective.org. Today I'm talking with Martin at Shady Lane something, and the computer just blanked out your name. Shady Lane something in Illinois. Martin, tell me the name of your place again.
It is Shady Lane Farm.
Thank you. Once I hit record, it cuts off half the people's names of their places, and if I haven't memorized it, I don't know what it is. So thank you. So what's the weather like in Illinois today, Mark?
It is cooler. It is only going to be 86 after about 4 days of 90s. And we have occasional thunderstorms, but it's cloudy. Not a bad day. We were out doing chores this morning, so not a horrible day to do chores.
Yeah, was the weekend rough on you guys? Because it was really hot here in Minnesota.
Yeah, it was. We mostly because I made everybody get up early to do chores before it got too hot. So it was pretty rough, but we got through it.
Yeah, the secret to homesteading and farming is get everything done before 10 a.m. that you have to do outside.
Yes, we had a triathlon that came through our neighborhood here on Sunday, and it was a heat index over 100.
Yeah, it was gross. I think it's supposed to be 82 here today at 3, 4 o'clock, and 82 is better than a heat indices of 105.
Yes.
So thankful that the temps have come down. So tell me about what you do at your place.
So, what we do, and we bought this 5 acre property in 2023, my wife Lisa and I. I have been an urban homesteader for many years, and finally it got to a point where I had rented all the garden plots I could from the local park district, and they had started to take plots back from us, which I understood, to because more people wanted to vegetable garden after COVID, which I totally support. I had failed in an attempt to get chickens allowed in the city. So I went to Lisa and I said, we just redid this beautiful colonial house here in Rockford and we love it. Let's sell it and buy a rundown 5 acre property and do it all again and add animals and fencing and new garden and building all these coops. And she said, okay.
That's a good woman.
And she had, there were farms in her past, but she herself had no homesteading experience. I had just taught her to vegetable garden, and she was completely interested in doing it. And she took a year off from her second master's degree and was the general contractor for all the work on the house and has really adapted to it and now is full on farm girl. Her cousins and relatives can't believe it. She raised a bottle lamb this spring all on her own and just has totally adapted to it.
She's embraced it.
Yes.
Awesome. I love her. That's great. So why did you want to do this? Was it just because you couldn't have chickens, or were you brought up around farming, or what?
Well, my mom's family out in western Kansas had a tradition of farming, and she spent part of her childhood on a small farm, very small by Kansas standards. They milked a few cattle, very, very rural. They made their own electricity with an AC Delco windmill generator. At once they had milk, they would shut down the power to the house from the windmill, and they'd power a radio off of batteries because they had to use all the power to chill the milk. So she grew up very, very rural, processing their own food, canning. They had a root cellar. So she grew up with all of that homesteading. In fact, that side of the family arrived in Western Kansas in 1887 and took up a homestead claim. So literally, they were homesteaders. So
Wow. Wow.
she, yeah, she brought that ethos to even our very suburban upbringing. She would can things. She would very much make things from scratch. I grew up making my own egg noodles that she taught me to make. We didn't have a big garden because many of our government houses, you just didn't have the space for it. But all of that ethos was very much there. And I spent time in Kansas in summers and when my dad was in Vietnam. So it really impacted me. And then when I was earning my PhD in American history, my dissertation was on the settlement of the far western counties of Kansas between 1890 and 1929, and that transitional period where the railroad and real estate companies were pushing people to do self-reliant homesteading with truck gardens and raising their own food and raising for the nearby, well, there weren't really any nearby market um, communities, but to ship things out by railroad. And I became fascinated by these trains the Santa Fe Railroad ran that basically taught you how to do all this. You come from the city, you get a homestead claim. Now, this is how you make money on your homestead, doing these various things. Oh, you can raise watermelons, you can raise this, you can do small agricultural animal production. And so that planted a seed in my head. And I liked the idea of self reliance. And I liked the idea of knowing where my food came from.
Wow. Okay. Now, it cut out when you were describing the woman that you were talking about. That was your mom?
That was my mom. Yes, my mom came from that. My grandparents, her parents, had survived the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. And so that also informed everything in our house. That they had lived, both sets of grandparents had lived through the Great Depression. So very much to be frugal and to do those kind of things. My Irish grandparents, who were fresh off the boat, my grandmother, I only found out later, kept the traditional Irish market values. So she would have my grandfather drive her out into the country outside of Boston and should buy bushels of potatoes, bushels of vegetables, and keep them in their basement in Boston. And because they were cheaper, she wasn't going to pay the grocery store prices and she could process them herself into anything she wanted.
You came from hearty stock, sir.
Yes.
I love it. And I love that you know all of this about your people because so many people don't know anything about their ancestors past their parents and possibly their grandparents. My dad's mom died when my dad was 2 years old. I never met her. He doesn't even remember her. And I so wish that there was a way to do, I don't know, a telephone to her so I could ask her about her life, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm a history professor, but my family picks on me because I don't actually ever want to do our history.
Hmm.
They're like, and I'm like, well, that's not history, that's genealogy. But I will go on and on about the place where we come from and that. So, but yes, I am not interested in genealogy. I am a disappointment to them.
I feel like genealogy and history are very interwoven. So for me, I'm interested in both things. And I have traced my lineage back to William the Conqueror in England on my mom's side, and I have traced my lineage back to the Salem witch trials on my dad's side. So I got some weird, crazy things going on in my ancestry. But anyway, so what do you have on your farm? Do you have critters? Do you have produce? Do you have D, all of the above?
D, all of the above.
Okay.
If we start with the vegetable garden, we have a 6,000 square foot vegetable garden that we broke in last year, which was an adventure in itself. The land had never been gardened by the people who had previously owned it for 50 years. And so we had to knock down a bunch of trees. It was a very typical rural story. Grandma built the house, daughter inherited it, daughter got old and sick, property got overgrown in trees, family dumped garbage on the property. So we had abandoned boats, campers, tractors, yard tractors, which we arranged for them all to take. But we still had all these just little groupings of trees that had popped up. So we had that cleared. And then approaching the soil, we actually had to rent a cold mold board plow, and we plowed it all up with our tractor, and then we had to till it again, disc it again, plow it again. And so last year it was really intense trying to get it done on time to get it planted, and it's turned out we have great soil, so
Good.
we can grow anything. So we have a big pumpkin patch we usually do. We grow lots of watermelons, tomatoes, peppers, all the brassicas. So cabbage, lots of broccoli. We're not canners, we're freezers. We have a lot of freezers. So we freeze all the broccolis, lots of peas and beans, radishes, leaf lettuce. I just successfully grew my first head lettuce ever, ornamental corn, and popcorn, and two kinds of sweet corn.
Very nice.
In fact, the sweet corn last year kind of marked the beginning of selling things because I planted a lot of sweet corn and it came in really well. And I said, hey, anybody want to buy some sweet corn? And we completely sold out of sweet corn. So this year we're double the amount of sweet corn, um, because we didn't even get any sweet corn last year. We usually dekernel it and freeze it for the winter, and we got no sweet corn last year for us. So the garden is wonderful. We grow carrots, pak choi. People always ask me what I grow, and I say, name it, and we're probably growing it. Strawberries, cut flowers is a new thing this year. We were asked by some people to grow cut flowers and to sell kind of make your own flower arrangement flowers. So we're trying that this year.
What flowers are you growing? Because I love flowers you can bring in the house.
Lots of dahlias, poppies, dianthus, celosia, daisies, lots of cosmos because they're very popular for arranging. So yes, we have just multiple varieties. Um, and they're doing pretty
Nice.
well, but we direct sow, so that's always an iffy thing. It's better if you seed start, but I don't seed start. I don't like to seed start. So
Okay. Awesome. And what do you have for animals?
for animals, we have rabbits. The rabbits are not meat rabbits. I have nothing against meat rabbits. I have raised meat rabbits before, uh, illegally in the city. But um, for us, my wife has two granddaughters. And so I knew immediately, and I have three sons that are between 23 and 9. And I knew the younger kids were going to request rabbits. So we built a rabbitry. It's all enclosed so they can take them out of the cages one at a time, play with them. They all have their own rabbit, and they're just pets. We raise Havanas, which are super soft. They're black, brown, Holstein. You can get lilac colored Havanas. They're very sweet rabbits. We have people who bring their kids over to play with them. So the rabbitry is a thing unto itself, and it's turned out to be a very positive, even though it's not a profit generator. We have chickens. We sell chicken eggs. We have ducks. We sell duck eggs. In fact, right now we have 6 mature female ducks. We don't keep male ducks. And we have 5 more in our basement brooder that are getting ready to come up. And so we're going to increase our number of ducks. And then we have 2 pilgrim geese that belong to my youngest son. And then he has 2 brown Chinese geese he is raising this year to show in 4-H. And we have already informed them that they're going to the fur and feather sale. We do not need 2 breeding pairs of geese. So we're going to keep the pilgrim geese because they're his babies. He raised them all on his own. We never wanted geese. It's one of those great homesteading stories. His mom, who lived in the city, bought him geese. And we knew very quickly that the city man was going to discover these 2 very loud geese living in their backyard. So my wife jokes, she looks out and says, "What are you doing?" And it's like, "I'm building the goose coop because they're going to come here." And sure enough, they did. He showed them in the fair last year, and the older pair won in the open class. So he's pretty excited about showing his Chinese brown geese.
Awesome.
And then in our front pasture, we have a heifer, which we're in the process of breeding. And we have 2 steers we bought last fall that'll be processed this fall. One's a red Angus and one's a black Angus American White Park mix. The heifer is a black Angus we actually got at a very good price from a failed homestead situation. Kind of a relative of a friend, they bought her in partnership with somebody to butcher, and the people backed out. She was all alone with their alpacas. She wasn't doing well because cows are social animals. And so we got her at a very cheap price. And she came and she was a much better quality animal we thought she was going to be. And so we're going to go ahead and breed her, and we're going to do sex selected semen. So we'll get another heifer, and the idea is instead of buying steers, we'll start breeding our own. And that will help insulate us against the cost. Many of your listeners are probably experiencing what we're experiencing. Cattle prices are through the roof.
I've heard that, yes.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. In fact, there's 4-H kids around here who can't show cattle this year because they can't afford to buy your basic feeder steer to show.
Uh-huh.
They're upwards of over $3,000. Heifers that are in calf are over $4,000 here in the Midwest. So it it really is crazy for us. The other funny thing about us and cattle is that I sold the 2 steers accidentally, all of them. We're basically only getting probably an eighth of our own beef.
Uh-huh.
And we have an empty freezer because we had bought from a faculty colleague of mine who had a homestead for many years, and they retired to a beautiful large property on a lake near Brainerd, Minnesota.
Oh, yep.
And yeah, and they shut down their homestead. And so I'm like, well, we'll have our own beef. And then I turned around and, like the corn, I sold all the beef except for an eighth. So for the first time in 10 years, we've had to buy commercially produced beef
Oh,
because,
no.
yeah, it's kind of embarrassing when you have cattle grazing on your front pasture and you're having to go to the store. But I had brokered deals for years for friends and colleagues with my sources for homesteader meat. And now they're my customers, which is really nice.
Yep.
So,
Hey, can I get you to backtrack to your son real quick with the ducks and the 4-H stuff?
sure.
Okay,
Um,
you said he's 9?
yes, Sam is 9. And then I have George, who is 15. And then Ethan is 23. He just graduated with his degree in English from Northern Illinois University. And then Lisa, my wife, has a daughter who's 33, who's married and has 2 daughters.
Oh, so you're a grandpa.
I'm a Martin
Well,
because
sure.
because her ex-husband is still around, and I think people are nervous because Lisa and I have been together for 5 years. We've only been married for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
But and when the babies were born, I think people are like, "Oh, how are we going to handle this?" And the little girls have handled it. I have a title. I'm Martin. That's it, which I'm completely happy with. So I always joke I am the senior male without portfolio. So I have no responsibilities, but I get to enjoy the whole thing.
I was
So
just gonna try to say that in a way that made sense, and you did it for me. Okay, so your son, who's little, I mean, he's grade school.
yes.
Um, he number one, he's gonna be so excited when you get your heifer bred and she has that baby. Because if he's into ducks, he's probably gonna love a calf.
Oh yeah.
And number
Oh yeah.
two,
He was very excited by the lambs this year.
oh yeah. So how long has he been involved in 4-H?
This is his first year. Last year we just did the open youth show at the fair one county over, and he kind of got the bug. It's funny because he's not a joiner. He doesn't do a lot of group activities. And so he likes 4-H because he can do his own individual project. He'll go to a meeting and then he's just on his own and he enjoys it.
Yeah. Cool. So if he's only been in it for a year, or he just started this year, whatever, however you said that,
Yes.
have you seen like the benefits for him in it? I mean, I don't know anything about 4-H. I just know that kids get involved in it and they
Yeah.
raise something and then they sell it and they have to part ways with the animal they raised and it's really hard at the end, blah blah blah. But I keep hearing about all the good things that come from being involved in 4-H. So what have you seen change in him, if anything?
I have seen him grow more confident. He is willing to put himself out there. He's done speeches in front of the meeting where he's talked about his raising of the geese and all of his knowledge of geese. So I've seen him grow in confidence. I've seen him enjoy interacting with other people, um, gains in knowledge. And 4-H, while there's a lot of focus on agriculture and animals, it's also science, it's geology, it's cooking, it's sewing, it's video production. In fact, he and his stepsister have kind of a band over at his mom's house, and they're actually going to perform in an entertainment show at the fair.
Fun. Fun.
So I've seen just huge benefits. In fact, moving out here, there has just been a lot of benefits. My oldest son is autistic, so he relates really well to animals.
Hmm.
He was away at school for the last couple of years after he moved out here, but he enjoys the peace and quiet. He enjoys the opportunity to be out in nature more. He really enjoys the rhythm of farm life because you wake up, you do chores, in the evening you do chores, and he really enjoys that a great deal. So I've seen a lot of those kind of benefits. They grow in confidence. Um, Sam, the 9-year-old, took the front tires and wheels off of the small garden tractor he had bought himself just a couple of weeks ago because he needed new tires. So he did it this morning.
Nice.
We took them off. We took him to the tire shop. Um, he's not thrilled about the cost, which is very funny because every person who owns machinery has to face the financial reality of the cost.
Oh, yeah.
So he's like, that's going to be a lot of weeding, Dad, to pay for those new tires. And I said, well, we'll find you some other projects too. So
Anything worth having is worth working for, right?
yes.
Yep.
So just all sorts of benefits, not just through 4-H, but it's always been living, even when we were urban homesteaders, living a homesteading lifestyle. You just understand more about the world. Um, to backtrack to animals, we also raise Dorper South African meat sheep, hair sheep. And one of the lessons we learned this year is our first ewe to lamb was our smallest. And we had spent all of her pregnancy worried she was going to have twins because she was very small. And we're like, please don't let Hanny have twins because it's going to be hard on her. And she lambed and everything seemed to be okay. She gave us just a beautiful ewe lamb, which we've named Helen. We're going to keep her. And so she got a name and was a great mom. And then we discovered that there was another lamb stuck in the birth canal. And we called the vet after 3 days and we lost Hanny and the other lamb was already passed away. So Helen became my wife's new baby, the bottle baby. We joke we're in our 50s. And when we got married, we never thought we would be up every 2 hours feeding an infant together and have that experience. We've had it now.
Uh-huh.
So, but it was really great. It really kind of cemented my wife's attitude about the farm. And Helen follows her around and calls for her. She and her half sister are being weaned in our neighbor's horse barn because they don't keep horses anymore. And that's just been a cool experience. But everybody learned that when you have livestock, things happen. And it was sad. Henny was a super sweet ewe, and we also had to deal with the fact that right there we lost $1,300
Hmm.
because Henny was 650. The ewe lamb we lost would have been 650, and actually we lost more than that because we had about $300 in vet bills.
Yeah.
So there's lessons to be learned. But then our last ewe, who lambed almost 2 months after the first two, gave us a beautiful ram lamb, which we're keeping, named Kieran. And the boys have now understand. First thing we do, we got to go down, cut the umbilical cord, iodine it, check everybody out. Sam loves doing that. Um, Sam is not a big kid, but he will pick up the lamb and kind of, he says, he goes, Mom, go away. we got to do this. I know you don't like this. He talks to the ewes. Like,
Oh,
I'm sorry, we're doing this to your baby, but it's for their own good. So yeah, he always does that. And um,
I love Sam. I want to meet Sam. He sounds adorable.
he has a huge head of red hair too. And we're Irish, so he has very pale skin, red hair. And this year he has finally leaned into his leprechaun heritage.
Good, good. And redheads are feisty and they're smart and they're ingenious and I love them. So you tell him that the lady you talked to today on the podcast episode said that redheads are fantastic.
Yes, he is a good one. All of the boys are. The middle one, George, who's 15, is really less into the farming, but he has a real sense of humanity and he's a fierce protector of the animals. It's very interesting in that way. He's not so much, oh, I love them, I love them, I love them, but when he does chores, he's very technician about it. It's going to be done right, and things are going to be done correctly because their lives matter, which I'm perfectly fine with. He's not going to gush all over it. But he did, in 15-year-old fashion, when the last lamb, the little ram lamb was born, he said, okay, he looked at him and said, I got to admit, you're cute.
I love it. It sounds like you have a fantastic team of folks on your farm, Martin. And I try to keep these episodes to half an hour and we're there. I would love to talk to you for like 8 hours because your stories are great, but no one's going to listen to an 8 hour podcast. Where can people find you
Yes, I
online?
understand. We have a Facebook page called Shady Lane Farms. I have an Instagram account called Rockford Homesteader. They can look at two. And two of my younger friends, I'm also a volunteer firefighter from the fire department because I don't know if you saw any of the videos I post on the Facebook page, but after that, they're like, you guys start doing TikToks. So we're going to start with TikTok soon.
Awesome. Good. Let me know when that happens and I will go back and add it to the show notes.
Thank you so much. This was a blast.
Thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate it when you people take time out of your busy lives to talk to me for half an hour. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. So, as always, you can find me at atinyhomesteadpodcast.com. And Martin, I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.